What's going on, everybody? Welcome back in. Today we're going to do things a little different. Realized the other day that I've never formally introduced myself on this channel. To start off, my name's CBBassin, hence CBBassin. And my fishing story starts many years ago as a little kid. Now let's go way back to when I was a kid. Me and my dad, on most weekends, we would head down to my grandma's house on Friday. That's where we'd spend the night. She lived down in Chalmette. Well, the next morning, if it was shrimping season, we'd head down to Pips Marine and we'd put the boat in there because we would head out across Hopedale Lagoon, across Lake Robin, and into Lake Coquille to shrimp out there. If it wasn't shrimping season, we was headed down to Breton Sound Marina and we'd head out towards Stump Lagoon and go red and trout fishing. My dad was just strictly saltwater. That's all he ever did, really. He had took me a couple of times as a baby perch fishing, but basically all he ever did was red and trout. Well, as the years went on, I learned a lot. My dad let me drive the boat, and he taught me how to use a compass and learn how to navigate the waterways. This is way back before GPS, cell phones. I mean, all you had was your knowledge and a compass. And if you're lucky, you had a paper map that was hand-drawn. There was no satellite maps. Not that we had anyway. So my dad taught me so much about how to navigate waterways and drive a boat, and also to be respectful of other people too. The bass fishing came along around 5th grade. Now, my 5th grade teacher and my mom were real close friends, and one weekend we was over there by my teacher's house. Well, I was bored. Mom and her are sitting there talking. I'm bored. I'm a kid. So my teacher told me, if you want, there's a rod out there on the back porch. You can go down the pond and go fishing. Hey, fine by me. I'm going to do that. I remember it was a Zepco rod. I don't remember what model number it was, but it was a Zepco. And the worm, it had a worm on it, and it was a Tequila Sunrise culprit worm. I remember that distinctly. Most people who've used culprit worms know that they're very distinctive look. They're flat bottom, and that's where your highlight color is. If it's a tequila, that's where your purple is. If it's a red shell, that's where your red is. So I remember that distinctly. It was a Tequila Sunrise culprit worm. I walked down to the pond. In a very short amount of time, I had 4 bass. The biggest being about 3.5 pounds. I was instantly hooked. I became obsessed with bass. That's what I wanted to fish for. And then after this, I had a friend of mine that lived on Powell Heights Canal in Bayou Lacombe. And my parents would bring me over there, and we'd go off in the pirogue up and down the Powell Heights Canal, and we'd bass fish. And sometimes we'd also fly rod fish. He got me into that, fly rod fishing for perch, which was a blast. But any chance I got, I was over there by his house fishing in the bayou. If I wasn't there, I was on my bike riding through the neighborhoods, going anywhere I can get to the bayou. We lived not far from Bayou Lacombe, so all the little side streets, a lot of them led to a point where you could get to the bayou. And my dad saw this, and also the fact that I watched bass fishing on TV constantly. I recorded it so I could watch it over and over again. I watched Bass Masters. I got to talking to Mr. Green, who worked at the same place my mom worked at. He was telling me about tournament bass fishing, and that was intriguing to me. He brought me fishing a few times on the boat. My dad's boat was just too bulky. We really couldn't go out in the bayous. We didn't have a trawl motor on it. It was just too big and heavy. It was mainly made for shrimping. So couldn't really get out there and do bass fishing. Well, Mr. Green took me a couple of times, just kind of fueled the fire. I always joke with him every time I see him and say, look, you got me into tournament fishing. I'm going to send you a bill for what I've spent in it. It's going to be quite a bit. Well, meanwhile, while all this is going on, like I said, my parents could see that this is what I wanted. This is what my passion was. But one year, me and my mom took a vacation one summer to Honduras, where my mom's from. And when we come back, there's a boat in the backyard. So So I asked my dad, whose boat is that? I figured he's working on someone's boat. He said, that's going to be your boat. My boat. He said, yeah. So I ran outside to go look at it. It was an 83 Bass Tracker. It's had the old brown carpet, the old orange and brown stripe down the side of it. So a Bass Tracker 3 is what it was. Google that, you'll find it. It had the 40 Mercury on it, the old metal wraparound cowling on it, and it had an old trawler motor on it. But I didn't care. I was ecstatic. I couldn't wait to get out on the water. You know, it had some things that needed to be worked on, and me and my dad worked together on it. And that's one thing I'm so very grateful for with my dad. My dad was a fix-it-all kind of person. And even with his old boats, his shrimp boat and all, we worked on it a lot together. Yeah, I got bored sometimes and wanted to go play, but we worked on it a lot together. And I learned a lot. Well, this boat was no different. Together we worked on it, and I learned how things worked on that boat. And it helped me to learn if something went wrong, what could be causing it, because I know what it takes to run this part of the boat. So trace that back. So very grateful for that. I still use that knowledge to this day. I wish I'd have paid more attention when I was younger. We're all young and dumb sometimes. We started fishing with it around Bayou Lacombe area, learning the area, learning how to drive. He teaching me how to drive the boat. And then also, once I kind of got that down, we'd start fishing with it. And while all this is going on, I'm still talking to Mr. Green. The tournaments are coming up. The Bayou Lacombe Wednesday afternoon, they do the Sundays through the winter. And I remember waiting for that first tournament. You know, I was so anxious to fish it. 29 years ago, at the Main Street launch on Bayou Lacombe, was my first tournament ever. It was an early Sunday morning. My dad launched me in the boat. When I went back up on land, he told me he was going to go ahead and go back home, and I was going to go by myself. It's my first trip by myself. So first tournament and first trip by myself. My dad was going to come back for the weigh-in. Well, I felt like I was in a Ranger in the Bassmaster Classic when we blasted off that morning. First spot I get to, put the trawl motor down, I hit the foot pedal and I hear a pop, and the foot pedal goes limp. So instantly think, okay, it's got to be the cable. So I look under the foot control, the cable's fine. Or there anyway. So I pull the trawl motor up, grab my little toolkit, I pull the head off. I find that you have two gears up there. You have the cable here with a pulley and a gear, and then a gear on a shaft going down to the foot to turn the foot. And there's a chain, or used to be a chain between the two. The chain broke. So now I'm fishing without a trawl motor. First tournament ever, no trawl motor. So I go down, I drift along banks fishing. I'll find little pockets I can anchor in and cast along the bank. I do what I can. Get back, my dad could see I'm kind of down, and he asked what was wrong, and I said trawl motor broke on me. I couldn't fix it. The chain broke. And I was thinking maybe we could get another chain, go ahead and we'll get another chain and fix it. We'll be back on the water. But I couldn't do it on the water. So later that week, I come home from school, and there's a new trawl motor sitting in the corner. So instead of fixing it, my dad said, nah, you're not going to have another ruined day like that. Put a new trawl motor on there. We went out there and started pulling the old one off, put the new trawl motor on. I was back in business for the next tournament. Ended up fishing that season out. And a few tournaments later into that season, I catch my first keeper in a tournament ever. And it come on that crankbait. That is a Bill Norman deep little end perch color. And in fact, I remember this crankbait so much that I'm pretty sure it was 96 was the color order number in Bass Pro Shop. That's how much I remember this crankbait. Now, through the years of fishing and beating it across rocks and docks and everything else, it's got that Bill delete on it. Just went ahead and took that off and didn't need that. But of course, it doesn't run like it used to. So I retired it, but I still keep it because this is the first keeper ever in a tournament. Come on that bait. This one right here. Just a few tournaments later in that season, this is all before the Wednesdays started, I caught another keeper on a brown and orange jig, and it was a 4.5 pounder. Again, I come in there ecstatic. I was so happy. because it didn't really take much to win these tournaments. If you had a limit, you won. I mean, if you had that 4 pound range, you generally won. Well, it turned out that day was a good day. I had that 4.5, and it didn't even get me big fish. It got me second place, but it didn't even get me big fish. I had one that one was 4.8, I think it was, and then I had another guy had a 4.10 or something like that. It was just a few ounces more, but he had a few fish to go with it, and he got first. Not bad. Ended up with second place in my first season ever. I placed, and then finished out the whole. I fished all through the Wednesdays after school. I remember sitting at home. I had the boat loaded up because I didn't have rod lockers then. I'd come home from school, grab all my rods and tackle, throw it in the boat. I had the trailer unlocked, and I was ready. As soon as my dad come home from work, he backed up. I cranked the winch down, hooked it up to the truck, and off we went to the launch, and he'd launch me. And I'd go fishing, come back for the weigh-in, he'd be there to pick me up. Again, so thankful for everything my parents have done. Finished out that whole season and ended up 4th place in the top 6. And I remember that because I got the shirt to prove it. 4th place, 1992 to 1993, Bayou Lacombe Wednesday Evening Club. Now, it's not saying too much. I mean, I think there was like 8 people fished throughout the year. It wasn't all that big of a tournament. But hey, I was proud of what I'd done. I wasn't last place, darn it. Finished out that year, and I continued to fish tournaments for the next, through high school. Yeah, I fished those tournaments all the way through high school. Basically, I fished those tournaments till I got married. Go back now. It's not jumping to the marriage section yet. We'll go back. During that time, I fished my first big tournament also. It was the Ozone Spring Open. Didn't do too bad. A friend of mine, he ended up paying my way. Guy that I had met through the Bayou Lacombe tournaments, he ended up paying my way to fish. He actually had to drive my boat because you had to be 18 to drive a boat in this tournament. I wasn't. The launch was at the lake in Chifuncta, that lake launch that's out there at the end of Main Street. And we ended up just going right around the corner into the rice fields. And the limits back then were 7 fish. We had 7 fish. We had our limit. We had a good one, like 3 pounds. And we ended up 18th place out of like 48 boats. Again, super happy about my finish there. A year goes by and we fished the second one, the second Ozone Spring Open. This time we had to launch at Marina Del Rey because the other one was underwater. The water was so high that the lake launch was underwater. So they changed it to Marina Del Rey. I remember sitting there that morning, tied up all next to all the big wigs, having them butterflies again, you know. Blasted off that morning, and this time we ended up running to Mandeville Harbor because I couldn't get under the bridge. The water was too high. I couldn't go to the rice field. So we went to Mandeville Harbor and fished. We caught a big one. But that's all we caught, one fish. That fish weighed 4.93. We had big fish, one, until about 5 minutes before weigh-in stopped. Before the scales closed, somebody come in with a 4.96. Well, there goes that. But still, was happy we had that big fish. Now, let's fast forward now all the way to post-high school. End up getting married and having a kid, and fishing just took a back burner. I mean, I just really couldn't do it. Didn't have the money to do it, and didn't have the time to do it. Didn't do it for years, really. I mean, fished every now and then with my dad. Never really did any tournaments. And then around 2002-ish, started fishing on Wednesday afternoons on Chifuncta River. And was just happy to be back in it, you know, and enjoying it. And then schedules changed at work, and I was working later, and I couldn't fish them anymore. So back to taking a back burner. And then ended up getting a boat. I've always wanted a good bass boat ever since I rode in one. That feeling of like you're flying in the air. It's that pad on the boat. It lifts up and it feels like you're flying. I always wanted one ever since I rode in one. Well, a time came where I was able to afford one, so I bought one. And it was a Champion 183 CX. If you go back to CBBassin on YouTube, and you'll see some more videos with my Champion. In fact, there's some skits in here that you saw the Champion in. That was my first big bass boat. I still had an aluminum boat at the time, which was a great boat. It really was. But I just wanted that bass boat. I wanted that feeling of flying. Started fishing some weekends, and then me and a good friend of mine who fished Lacombe tournaments a lot, and also fished all through high school. Me and him got together, and we were going to fish some weekend tournaments. Seeing as how I can't fish the afternoons anymore, we were going to fish some weekends. Well, the only tournaments we could find, they weren't bad tournaments, but the only tournaments we could find were bigger tournaments. $50 or more to enter, 3 o'clock weigh-in. We were looking for more of a low-key kind of tournament, like we used to fish in Lacombe. The Wednesdays when they fished on Sunday was only until noon and was $20. That's what we're looking for. That's a kind of a good stepping stone also for newcomers to the tournament world. They don't have to jump right into the bigger entry fees against the big wigs, the big sticks. Something a little smaller, something a little more low key, and see if they like it. So this is where the idea of Bass Assassins came around. This is the tournament I run. We based it all off of the old school tournaments. And I even started it every year. The first tournament is in Bayou Lacombe. That's the base for it. That's where my fishing started, my tournament fishing started. That's where what we based this tournament off of, what they used to do, that's where they started at. That's where we started at. And then it's been going on great. It's been going great. It's been going 10 years now. This is the 10th year. Now we have points, and we have a classic and trophies and all that for the classic winner and plaque for the Angler of the Year. It's been doing great. Really has. Meanwhile, while this is all going on, my son's getting older. He starts getting into fishing too. A very special moment happened with his first keeper. My first keeper came on Bayou Lacombe. Wednesday afternoon tournament on Bayou Lacombe, or a Sunday tournament on Bayou Lacombe. My son's first keeper came on Bayou Lacombe on Father's Day in one of my tournaments, in a Bass Assassin tournament. So that was a very memorable moment, very happy moment there. And he started getting into it. He started getting excited about it. And so we started fishing some other bigger clubs also. They had the Southern Fishing Buddies at the time. They fished on Saturdays. So me and him started fishing those. I think I kind of burned him out on it because I was scouting every chance I got. I was trying to get, because they were going to give away plaques for the top 6 or top 5 in points, I think. They were going to give away plaques. So I was really wanting to get him a plaque, something he could hold, something he could show for it, like I had this shirt. You know, something he could show for what he's done. So I was really pushing hard and kind of pushed him kind of hard. I will say he saved us. He saved our butt because there was one tournament on the lock. We didn't have a fish. And he straight up KVD'd a crankbait right out in the middle of the lock and caught a keeper. It was the only keeper we weighed in. So we ended up getting points in that tournament. And that saved us because we tied for 4th place in the points that year. So thank you, Gavin. But anyway, we fished a lot of benefit tournaments and also the Southern Fishing Buddies. And then he kind of got burned out on it, understandably. And his real passion became mud riding. He loved mud riding. And now it's hot rods, sports cars, stuff like that, now that he's grown up. So that was a good little time in my fishing history where my son fished with me in a lot of tournaments. Very enjoyable times. Well, guys, look, if my framing is off, I'm sorry. I had to change batteries on the camera, and to change it, I got to pull it off the tripod. So I'm sorry if everything's off. What were we talking about? Oh yeah, now we're up to the present day. I've been fishing the Bass Assassins and the Carnarvon Bass Trail with Megan this year. And I also fished a few of the little the Chalmette tournaments and during the winter time. Don't get to fish as many as I want to, but very grateful for the ones I do fish and the time I do get out there. Very grateful to be in a position that I can fish and do what I really love to do, follow my passion. Grateful for you guys that have come along on this journey in the last 2 years I've had this channel. I think it's 2 years now. And hope you all stick around because we got a long journey ahead of us. I'm gonna keep on doing this as long as I can. Hope you guys love the videos. Thank you all for watching.